Just wow.
Right, this next one's a puzzle game. 2 minutes from the time I close the door. Ready?
Yes!
Let's go!
Right. I can't see any obvious clues. Guys, I'm really going to need your help here. Oh, that floorboard seems a bit loose.
Run down the line up for the show.
Maybe
Do the line up, run it down. The show, run it.
Right, do it.
Yep.
Answer a question about Elder Scrolls.
No,
Elder Scrolls 5. Do an Elder Scrolls 5. Talk about it.
Break the windows.
Skyrim.
Break the windows.
Swords
Yeah,
and that.
it's behind there. Do it. Break the windows. Smash them. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. Solve the puzzle.
Mumsy said this would happen. Here's what's coming up on this week's show. This week's news, from First Strike's map quintet to Duke Nukem's release date set. The arcade cabinet is a shadow of its former self in Zeit 2. Portal 2 takes us to a better place, and some extremely puzzling developments. But first, here's this week's news.
If I cut my arms off, I can fit through the bars. In keeping with this episode's theme, a small brain teaser for you. What connects the 3 news items you're about to watch? Glancing out of the Inside Xbox office windows this morning, we noticed a couple of Gloucestershire old spots swooping along in a biplane. Casting our eyes downwards, we then noticed that the underworld appears to be icing up. Last, and most unbelievably of all, we checked our email and found that Duke Nukem Forever had a release date. Yep, Duke Nukem Forever, a game whose release date has been when it's done for the last 300 years, is now apparently done. Or it will be on the 3rd of May in the US and the 6th of May in Europe. Presumably the extra 3 days are for them to add bowler hats and baguettes to all the characters to localise them for a European audience. In another astonishingly rare case of a publisher actually just coming right out and saying when their game will be released rather than all this Q2 or FY11 nonsense, Rockstar has announced that LA Noire will be releasing on 17th of May.
4 women, all murdered.
The latest trailer also includes a few more plot details, revealing that the game will apparently centre on the hunt for a serial killer. Also, it'll feature jaw-dropping facial animation, but hey, we already knew that. I mean, look at it. There's not long to go now until First Strike, the first add-on for Call of Duty Black Ops, hits Xbox Live exclusively, even less if you're watching this after the 1st of February. As if the COD Hardcore, or COD pieces as they're affectionately known to us, needed any more excuses to get into a froth, Activision has released a new trailer that reveals the unique features of the 5 new multiplayer maps. Kowloon features zip lines which allow you to quickly move from rooftop to rooftop at the expense of being completely vulnerable to fire. Discovery has a collapsible bridge that can be destroyed in order to send rivals plummeting to their doom, and Berlin Wall contains a no man's land area where you'll have to contend with automatic defence turrets. Stadium features no such novelties, but is said to be a great close combat environment for fans of Nuketown. The same can't be said for new Zombie Map Ascension, however, which features such accurate period detail as flying platforms and zombie monkeys. Those last 2 words alone should assure you that First Strike will definitely be 1,200 Microsoft points well spent. If you've thoroughly looted the Sierra Madre Casino of all its gold bars, cosmic knives and stylish beeping necklaces, you might be wondering if Bethesda is planning on releasing any more DLC for Fallout New Vegas. Well, the good news is that they are planning on doing that thing I just said. Talking to news-devouring website VG247, Bethesda's VP of PR and Marketing Pete Hines said, "We like to support our products. We like to do a good job of that, and I don't think putting out one DLC pack would reach that." Well, we don't either, Pete. One DLC pack? Come on. As with Dead Money, the DLC will of course be Xbox 360 exclusive, which is good news for you as you presumably own one since you're watching this. Unless you're watching this on YouTube, in which case stay out of the comments section here. So, what was the connection? Well, if you answered news, then you're an incredible genius. We would have also accepted words, guns, games, moving pictures, the sound of an unseen man's voice, and everything's really connected when you think about it. Your prize? This list thing that Andy's about to do.
This was a triumph.
Talk to any puzzle game developer and they'll tell you that one of the biggest challenges they face is balancing the difficulty of their game. Too easy and no one is challenged, too hard and people give up too early. Or you could just ignore all that and make your puzzles insane and awful like these, the top 5 worst puzzles of all time. Author Douglas Adams was a vocal advocate of home computing and as such was at the forefront of adventure video games, co-writing and designing the text-adventure adaptation of his brilliant and hugely successful Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series of novels. Unfortunately, he also made the whole thing unbelievably, legendarily difficult in an age before internet walkthroughs. The most notorious puzzle from the game involves you trying to get a universal translator known as a babel fish out of a vending machine. It's one of the very first things you have to do in the game, is incredibly difficult to figure out, and if you don't do it in a specific number of moves, the game becomes unwinnable. This puzzle was so famously hard that Infocom produced t-shirts bearing the legend "I got the babel fish," which is probably a sign that you've got your difficulty balance a bit off. Throughout Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, puzzles are set for you by Subject 16, the previous subject of Abstergo's mind fiddling, before Desmond Miles started clogging up the Animus with all his sexy ancestors. Trouble is, Subject 16 has a pretty broad idea of what constitutes an interesting puzzle, with chess, clicking on pictures of robots, and poring over paintings of Jesus with a magnifying glass all apparently qualifying. The nadir of this is probably when you're presented with a map full of light bulbs that you need to smash with your cursor that's now a $sign, in what's probably supposed to be a stinging attack on capitalism, maybe? Or possibly Edison? Anyway, not impressed. Now, if you wanted to get a fishmonger's golden belt buckle, there's a variety of ways you could go about it. Ask him nicely, offer him some money, swap it for an identical one made of iron pyrite. There are lots of solutions to this puzzle that make some sort of sense. What makes absolutely no sense is the solution to this puzzle in the first Discworld game for the PC. I'm just going to read out the relevant section from a walkthrough, and you can make up your own mind as to what combination of brain damage, alcohol, and programmer in-jokes getting out of hand led to this being the solution. Fill your pot with the aphrodisiac custard from the cauldron, then go to the fishmonger, tie the octopus up with string, then pour the custard into the toilet and put the octopus in it. Put a prune in the fishmonger's caviar and he will immediately need to go to the toilet. Now you can get his golden belt as the octopus forces itself on him. Yeah. In the game X-Men on the Mega Drive, there was a puzzle that required your X-Man or X-Lady to reset the Danger Room computer to stop a virus being emitted on a particular level. A thorough search of the room you're in yields absolutely no buttons, switches, or any way of resetting the computer. Sadly, this is meant to be taken completely literally and is a case of the game attempting to break the fourth wall, meaning they want you to literally reset the computer, as in press the reset button on your Mega Drive. Unfortunately, it was very specific. You had to lightly press the button for the trick to work, otherwise the Mega Drive would just reset as normal, wiping all of your progress. As Magneto's dastardly plans go, this is definitely up there. Nowadays, Solid Snake is a grizzled badass who spends most of his time hiding in air vents or punching clones of himself on metal gantries, but back in 1990 he was starring in Japan-only release Metal Gear 2 for the Famicom and solving some truly absurd puzzles while he was at it. One of these in particular stands out as especially bonkers. Snake needs to get a guard to deactivate an electrical gate, but the guard is instructed to keep it on all day, so Snake must go and find an egg and wait patiently for it to hatch. It does eventually hatch, a fully grown owl emerges from the egg for some reason, which then hoots. Despite it being blazing sunshine and the middle of the day, the guard then shouts "evening" and deactivates the gate. Well, of course, it's so obvious when you think about it. Obviously insane.
Ever since man first looked at a rudimentary clay pot and thought, what if I smash this into hundreds of pieces and tries to put the remains back together again, puzzles have provided an entertaining means of exercising our brains without actually going to the trouble of learning anything useful. Jigsaws, word searches and obscure riddles dispensed by wizened, toothless loons certainly did a great job of massaging our cerebellums in a pre-digital age, but once Mr. Home Computer moved into town, these once popular pursuits now seemed archaic and vaguely ridiculous. One of the earliest video games to make us feel mentally inadequate was 1981's logic puzzler Sokoban, which let you experience the glamorous lifestyle of a warehouse assistant. If you've ever cursed a block-pushing puzzle in any game you've ever played, now you know what's to blame. Sokoban didn't become a household name, most likely because it's incredibly punishing, but the same can't be said of a certain game that a humble computer engineer in Russia devised 3 years later. When Alexei Pajitnov realized what brain-stroking fun you can have simply by dropping various configurations of 4 squares, known as tetronomos, into a pit and attempting to form complete horizontal lines, history was made. More than a quarter of a century on, Tetris is still played by millions and has appeared on more formats than any other game. Pajitnov still designs games to this day, his most notable achievements being Hexic, which comes bundled with every Xbox 360 console, and an excellently maintained beard. Between them, Tetris and Sokoban have spawned countless imitators and derivatives over the years, but there are still plenty of examples of genuinely original games through the years that have melted minds entirely on their own terms. Like Minesweeper, which has kept many a bored office worker amused with its mixture of careful deduction and occasional blind luck for over 2 decades now. Or Psygnosis' Lemmings, whose premise of micromanaging dozens of suicidal greenhead creatures in order to guide them to safety resulted in plenty of accolades, millions of fans, and a mountain of broken mice and monitors. Much more recently, Jonathan Blow's Braid decided to bypass the puzzle genre's struggles with the third dimension by skipping straight to the fourth. Using time itself as a mechanic, Braid gives you control over the uncontrollable in a dreamlike watercolour world. But nothing has redefined our perception of what a video game puzzler is capable of like Valve's brilliant Portal. First released in 2007 as part of the incredible bundle of the Orange Box, it applied the Half-Life developers' mastery of the first-person genre in a completely new and ingenious fashion. Like Tetris and Sokoban before it, the basic principle of Portal is simple. You're armed with a gun that can create two portals on certain surfaces. You enter one and simultaneously exit through the other. As with its forefathers, it's the application of this principle that elevates Portal to modern classic status. Valve doesn't so much run with the concept as it does don a pair of rocket-propelled skates, making consistently impressive use of the physics associated with this miraculous technology to allow you to perform the impossible, but in a way that always seems perfectly logical. Portal also stands out on account of its accomplished narrative, which manages to amuse, intrigue, and disturb in equal measure, often concurrently. It also spawned a couple of popular internet memes that we absolutely will not mention here. 4 years on, Valve is putting the finishing touches to Portal 2, a full retail release that continues the story of Chell, the tormented protagonist of the first game, and GLaDOS, her delightfully psychotic AR tormentor. It also includes a standalone two-player co-op campaign, new gameplay features such as special gels that affect the properties of the surfaces they come into contact with, and the voice of that tall bloke who does all the hard work for Ricky Gervais. We recently spoke to Chet Falazek, one-third of the writing team responsible for the Portal series' widely acclaimed story and dialogue, to find out how the sequel will continue to boggle the minds of the Portal hardcore without becoming utterly impenetrable to newcomers.
Well, so the Portal 1, you had this weird thing where people didn't even realize they were getting told the story until they were already being told the story midway, right? Where we can't just do that again. We can't fake that you're going to have this disbelief that nothing's going on. Yeah. So we have to jump in that there's a narrative from the get-go. That narrative is done in the same way we've learned to do storytelling, where especially as a single player, if you want to stop and just listen to Stephen Merchant go on about something, he probably will go on for a while. There's a lot of content in there, and a lot of the other characters have the same kind of element in it. And then in the co-op story, we've learned a lot from Left 4 Dead on how to tell story in the co-op world, where it has to be more give and take. It has to be more fluid in how the story's told, because there's always, if there's two people playing a game, one of them's impatient. And you can't just stop and tell story. You have to tell it in a way that they can digest it while they're moving through and playing.
So we're playing Zeit 2, or Zeit Squared. Zeit obviously being German for time.
Time,
as we
yes.
all know.
We all know, funky Zeit.
Yeah, indeed. So, bit of a clue there as to what this game's about?
Yeah, it's kind of a puzzle across the shooter. So it's a horizontally scrolling shooter with the time-warping sensibilities of, say, Braid.
Not the time-warping sensibilities of Richard O'Brien.
No.
That's a shame. Would have been appropriate for the episode.
It would have been consistent with it. Although it does feature the licensed soundtrack, If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher.
Wonderful.
Playing through it.
We were just saying there as we were loading it up, it has this kind of very Amiga game aesthetic to it. It feels like one of those games you boot up on your Amiga 500.
Yeah, it has that ethos, but a few weird little quirks set it apart. So the idea is that you basically have an energy meter that's constantly ticking down in the top left corner. Kind of perversely, shooting actually makes that reduce.
Right.
If an enemy passes and goes off screen, that makes it reduce. And so the idea is to keep killing the enemies in order to keep your energy bar topped up. Now, it rapidly becomes apparent that you can't cope with the onslaught of enemies that are coming towards you.
Right.
And so that's where the time mechanic comes into play.
Yeah, because when you rewind, the you that was there a second ago is still there, right?
Yes. So you create a shadow of yourself who will kind of double up your efforts. So if there's a row of enemies coming at the top and the bottom of the screen simultaneously, you can go at the top, take them out, rewind time, head down to the bottom while the top one deals with it, and then take those out too.
Right. So is there a limit to how much you can rewind? How's that being?
Yeah. In the bottom left corner there is an indicator that shows how many seconds of time you can reverse. So another thing that gets built up as you collect certain power-ups is the amount of time that you can build up to a maximum of 4.2 seconds. Very specific.
Wow, that is very specific.
Very specific.
So is there anything else you can do with this time? Is there any kind of clever ways you can use this doubling up mechanic?
Yeah, as I'm about to show you actually, these enemies that you'll see are kind of transparent. I can't shoot them right now.
Right.
But if I rewind time, for the period that I've rewound time to, they then become vulnerable. Conversely, you can also fast forward time. So
okay.
if you fancy your chances and there's a certain wave of enemies that you know you can take out really easily, you can speed up time. That also acts as a score doubler as well.
Right, and this is all leaderboards based as well, right?
Yeah, so yeah,
the Super Meat Boy style competition.
Yeah, absolutely, the kind of thing that suckers me right in. The thing is this is all based on multipliers as well. So if enemies pass, your multiplier drops. You want to build to a 4 times multiplier, and then obviously if you've got your shadow going or you fast forward time. There's so many kind of means of racking up the high scores, and you do get awarded medals for it.
Okay, so it's R-Type meets Braid meets Super Meat Boy, I guess. You describe it as?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair comparison.
Cool, and how much is this?
This is a mere 800 Microsoft points.
And available right now on Xbox Live Arcade.
Indeed.
Excellent.
Go buy it.
Check it out.
Hi, I'm Tim Schafer, and the NExUS fights like a cow.
Where am I?
Okay, you're in a dungeon. There's a table to the left of you.
Ah!
Sorry, in front of you. Right, there's some objects on the table. Take the haunted printer.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we'll be fine. Just take the printer. Okay, the haunted printer's after you. Don't panic. Turn around.
Okay.
Now go right. Sorry, I meant my right. Oh.